The massive crystal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hum. Tom Reed walked in, his steps echoing across the polished floor. The human ambassador looked tired, but his blue suit was perfectly pressed and his back straight. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch him, some with multiple pupils, others glowing with bioluminescence, all filled with barely hidden fear or disgust. 50 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. 50 years of being treated like dangerous animals who had somehow learned to use tools. The fact that humans had mastered faster than light travel didn't matter to them. Neither did the colonies humans had built on harsh worlds that other species considered uninhabitable. To the Council, humans were just Deathworlders, primitive creatures from a planet that should have killed them. Tom took his seat at the lowest tier of the chamber. Even after half a century, Earth's representative wasn't allowed to sit higher. The Council claimed it was tradition, but Tom knew better. They wanted humans to know their place. The Grand Speaker's voice boomed through the chamber. The Council recognizes the concern of the Earth delegation regarding the quarantine of their outer colonies. However, the Bright Alliance has the right to protect trading routes near their space. Tom pressed the button to speak. A small light flickered on his podium. With respect, Grand Speaker, these quarantines have cut off supply lines to 3 million human colonists. The colonies of New Hope, Havens Point, and Liberty Station are not military installations. They are civilian settlements with families and children. Whispers filled the chamber. Tom caught fragments of conversations in various languages, his translator working overtime. Children? Deathworlders breed in space. How dangerous. Their numbers must be controlled. The High Speaker of the Bright Alliance stood up. His crystalline body caught the light, sending rainbow patterns across the chamber. The human fails to mention the military-grade shields protecting these colonies, the weapon systems disguised as mining equipment. We have evidence. Evidence that was never presented to this council. Tom cut in, breaking protocol. More whispers. A Deathworlder daring to interrupt a High Speaker. We request an independent investigation. Those are standard planetary shields, approved by council regulations. The mining equipment is exactly what we claimed it to be. We have followed every rule, every restriction placed on us. The Grand Speaker's tentacles rippled with annoyance. The human will remember proper protocol. Tom lowered his head slightly. My apologies, Grand Speaker. He could feel his hands wanting to form fists. He kept them flat on the podium. His computer terminal chimed softly. A message from Earth Command. Colonies reporting critical supply shortages. Medical supplies running low. Estimated 2 weeks until situation becomes severe. The High Speaker continued as if Tom hadn't spoken. The Bright Alliance has noted concerning patterns in human expansion. Their populations grow too quickly. They establish colonies on worlds no civilized species would touch. They arm their settlements beyond reasonable levels. The quarantine is a precautionary measure. Tom looked around the chamber. He saw a few sympathetic faces, mostly from other species who had evolved on harsher worlds. But they were too few, and their voices too quiet. The Council had always been dominated by species from gentle worlds, species who saw any sign of strength as a threat. Grand Speaker, Tom said, his voice steady despite his rising anger. Earth requests an emergency vote on the quarantine situation. Under Article 7 of the Colonial Protection Act, we have the right. The Council is aware of the human delegation's rights, the Grand Speaker interrupted. However, given the sensitive nature of this situation, we will need time to review the request. The matter will be added to next month's voting schedule. Next month. Tom felt cold. His colonies didn't have a month. If there are no other immediate concerns, the Grand Speaker continued, this session is adjourned. Tom stood up slowly. As he walked out of the chamber, he sent a simple message back to Earth Command. Council delaying. Diplomatic options dwindling. The response came quickly. Understood. Contingency plans ready. Maintain current approach for now. Tom smiled slightly as he walked through the crystal doors. The Council thought they knew humans. Violent, primitive Deathworlders playing at civilization. They had no idea what humans were truly capable of. They had never bothered to ask why such a primitive species chose to follow their restrictive rules. They never wondered if maybe, just maybe, humans were being nice. For 50 years, humanity had played by their rules. Tom wondered how much longer that would last. Captain Mary Stone stood at the bridge of her scout ship, the Ranger, watching the medical supply freighter explode into silent fragments against the Bright Alliance's energy barrier. Her hands gripped the command rail until her knuckles turned white. The ship had been carrying vital medicines for the children of New Hope Colony. Its only crime was trying to pass through what the Alliance called a quarantine zone. "Get me those sensor readings," she ordered, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I want to know exactly what kind of barrier they're using." Her sensor officer, Bill, worked quickly at his station. The screens filled with data streams that would have overwhelmed most alien crews. Humans had learned to process information faster than most species thought possible. They just didn't advertise it. "Captain," Bill called out, "these readings don't match any known Alliance technology. This barrier, it's not designed to stop ships. It's designed to let them burn up their fuel trying to get through. They're not quarantining our colonies. They're trying to drain them dry." Mary walked to his station, studying the readings herself. The barrier was clever. It would let small ships through after they wasted most of their fuel trying to penetrate it. They could get in, but they'd never have enough fuel to get out. Larger ships, like the medical freighter, would simply be destroyed. "Send these readings to Earth Command," she ordered. "Encrypt them with Protocol 7. She turned to her communications officer. "Jack, get me a channel to New Hope Colony. Let's see how bad things really are." The colony's leader appeared on the main screen. His face was gaunt, his eyes tired. "Captain Stone," he said, "I wish I had better news. We're running out of everything. Food, medicine, fuel cells. The Alliance keeps saying the quarantine is temporary, but they're lying. They've been herding all traffic away from us for weeks." "How long can you hold out?" "Maybe 2 weeks. We've started rationing everything." But he looked away for a moment. "We lost 2 children yesterday. The medicine they needed was on that freighter you just saw destroyed." Mary felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't a quarantine. This was a carefully planned attack. "Have you seen any Alliance ships actually enter the zone?" "Small ones. They fly through a few times a week, watching us. Like they're studying us, waiting for something." Mary opened a secure channel to her second-in-command station. "Robert, pull up everything we have on similar quarantine actions in the past 20 years. Focus on other Deathworld species." The data came back faster than she expected. Her blood ran cold as she read it. The pattern was clear. 3 other Deathworld species had faced similar quarantines in the past 2 decades. 2 of them had been forced to abandon their colonies, their populations now restricted to their home systems. The 3rd had gone extinct. "They're not containing us," she said quietly. "They're culling us, making us more manageable." She straightened up, decision made. "Send everything we found to Ambassador Reed, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority black." The connection to Earth Command came through instantly. Admiral Walker's face appeared on her private screen. She explained what they'd discovered, watching his expression grow darker with each word. "It's worse than that, Captain," he said when she finished. "We've decoded some of their internal communications. The Bright Alliance calls this their gentle solution. They think they're being merciful, using starvation instead of direct violence. Their long-term goal is to reduce human space presence by 60%. Merciful." Mary's voice was barely a whisper. "They killed children yesterday. Keep watching them, Captain. Record everything. But do not engage." The Admiral's face was grim. "We've spent 50 years letting them think they know what humans are capable of. We've been patient. We've been nice." He looked down at something on his desk, then back up at her. But there's a reason Earth's official designation isn't just Deathworld. It's Maximum Extreme Deathworld. They're about to learn what that really means. Mary nodded slowly. She looked out at the barrier that had killed innocent people trying to deliver medicine to children. 50 years of playing by their rules. 50 years of holding back. 50 years of being nice. She had a feeling that was about to change. The emergency council session felt different this time. Ambassador Reed stood at his podium, but he wasn't alone. The screens behind him showed images of suffering human colonies, children in medical beds, empty food storage units, and desperate faces. The council chamber was unusually quiet as the images played. "These are not military statistics," Reed said into the silence. "These are not strategic reports. These are our children, our families. In the 3 days since our last session, 7 more have died from lack of medical supplies." His voice remained steady, but his eyes had the hard look of a man who had run out of patience. The High Speaker's crystalline form shimmered as he rose. The human delegate attempts to manipulate this council with emotional displays. The quarantine is a security measure, nothing more. If their colonies cannot sustain themselves, perhaps they should not have been established in such harsh environments. In Earth Command's main control center, Admiral Walker watched the council feed with dozens of other military leaders. The room was dark except for the glow of screens and holographic displays. Each screen showed different data, fleet positions, colony status reports, and most importantly, the activation codes for Protocol Omega. "Look at them," one of his officers whispered. "They really believe we're just angry primitives throwing a tantrum." Walker nodded slowly. On his private screen, he reviewed the latest intelligence. The Bright Alliance wasn't just targeting the quarantined colonies. They were preparing similar operations near 6 other human settlements. Their gentle solution was about to expand. Back in the council chamber, other species were beginning to speak up. A representative of the Miners Guild, their heavy gravity adapted body supported by their environment suit, raised their appendage. The council must consider the economic impact. Human mining operations provide 40% of the galaxy's heavy metals. These quarantines can be adjusted for essential resources, the High Speaker interrupted. The Bright Alliance is prepared to take over these operations. After all, we cannot trust such critical resources to unstable species. Reed's hands tightened on his podium. The movement was subtle, but Walker caught it on the feed. It was the signal they had discussed. Reed had confirmed that diplomacy was truly dead. The human colonies were established legally, Reed said, his voice carrying a new edge. They followed every regulation, every restriction, every rule this council created. We adapted our ships to your standards. We limited our weapons to your specifications. We changed our mining techniques to match your protocols. We did everything you asked. The Grand Speaker's tentacles waved in irritation. The council is aware of human compliance. However, no, Reed interrupted, causing a shock to ripple through the chamber. You are not aware. You have never been aware. You see our compliance as weakness, our cooperation as submission, our respect for your rules as proof of your superiority. He looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes that had always looked down on him. You should have asked yourselves why a species that evolved on what you call a maximum extreme death world would so readily accept your limitations. In Earth Command, Walker watched the High Speaker's response. The crystalline being's colors shifted to what their intelligence suggested was a pattern of contempt. Are you threatening this council, human? Need I remind you that your species is vastly outnumbered? That your technology is centuries behind ours? That your military capacity is? Walker pressed his palm against the DNA scanner on his command console. A soft blue light pulsed under his skin as the system confirmed his identity. On the screen, Reed was already walking out of the council chamber, leaving shocked silence in his wake. Send the signal to all human ships and colonies, Walker ordered. Authentication code Walker 7 Delta 0. Around him, Officers began activating their own consoles. Each one required separate DNA confirmation. No single person could activate Protocol Omega alone. It had been designed that way. A final check against rash action. Admiral, his second-in-command said quietly, "Are we certain?" Walker looked at the screen showing the colony death toll, at the Bright Alliance's expansion plans. At 50 years, the first sign that something had changed came from a minor trade station near the quarantine zone. The station's sensors picked up an energy surge from what they had always dismissed as a primitive human mining outpost. The surge grew stronger, and then the outpost simply disappeared. In its place stood a fully armed battle station. The same thing was happening across human space. Hidden facilities were shedding their disguises. Mining ships were transforming into warships. What aliens had thought were simple cargo containers were unfolding into defense platforms with weapons beyond anything they had seen before. In the Bright Alliance's command center, the High Speaker watched in growing horror as reports flooded in. "Impossible," he whispered, his crystalline body flickering with patterns of fear. Their technology was assessed. Their capabilities were measured. We had 50 years of data. His tactical officer's voice shook. "Sir, we're detecting new ships. They're coming out of the human space stations. The stations are building them. But that's not possible. Their manufacturing technology was primitive." "Those weren't manufacturing centers," a new voice said. Every screen in the command center lit up with Admiral Walker's face. They were fully equipped shipyards, running at less than 1% capacity. "We kept them slow, inefficient, primitive, because that's what you expected to see." The High Speaker's colors swirled in patterns of rage and disbelief. "You deceived the Council. You violated." "We violated nothing," Walker cut in. "We chose to operate below our capabilities. Every piece of technology we used was exactly what we said it was. We just didn't mention what else we had." He smiled slightly. "Did you ever wonder why humans adapted so easily to your advanced technology? Why we learned your systems so quickly? We were downgrading, not upgrading." On the screens behind Walker, the High Speaker could see human ships taking position around key Alliance installations. Their design was unlike anything he had seen before, sleek, powerful, and completely unbound by what he had thought were the limits of human engineering. "The quarantine barriers," the tactical officer reported, voice trembling. They're gone. The humans aren't attacking them. They just turned them off, like they had the codes." "We've had your codes for 40 years, Walker said calmly. "We broke your encryption the first time we saw it. But we kept pretending we couldn't, kept letting you think your systems were beyond our understanding." His expression hardened. "Just like we let you think those colonies you've been starving were helpless." The feed switched to show New Hope Colony. The barrier that had been killing their supply ships was gone. But more than that, the colony itself was changing. Hidden panels opened in the ground, revealing stockpiles of supplies. Defense systems emerged from what had looked like simple housing units. The colony that had seemed to be starving was suddenly bristling with power. "Did you think we would really leave our people defenseless?" Walker asked. "Those children you thought were dying from lack of medicine. They were safe. We had supplies hidden throughout the colonies. The deaths were simulated, one last test to see if you had any conscience at all." His voice was cold now. "You failed that test. Across human space, every colony, every station, every ship was revealing its true nature. The primitive Deathworlders had built an entire shadow fleet, a hidden infrastructure that had grown alongside their public one. For 50 years, they had shown the galaxy what it expected to see, a struggling young species barely managing to keep up with superior civilizations." The High Speaker watched as his carefully planned quarantine operations crumbled in minutes. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why pretend to be weak for so long?" "Because we wanted to give peace a real chance," Walker replied. "We wanted to prove that we could follow your rules, live by your restrictions, be part of your civilization. We held back. We stayed quiet. We were nice. The Admiral's eyes were like steel. But you mistook our restraint for weakness, our patience for fear, our respect for submission. That was your mistake. Throughout the galaxy, the message was the same. The Deathworlders had decided to stop being nice, and no one had been prepared for what that truly meant. Captain Mary Stone stood on the bridge of her ship, but it wasn't the Ranger anymore. The simple scout vessel had transformed into its true form, the advanced warship Thunder. She watched her tactical display as hundreds of human ships moved into position around the Bright Alliance's largest shipyard. "All ships report ready, Captain," Robert said from his station. The fear in his voice was gone, replaced by calm professionalism. "Strike teams are in position, waiting for your command." "Remember," Mary said to her crew, "this is not about revenge. This is a demonstration. Precise, controlled, surgical." She looked at the massive shipyard ahead of them. It had built the barriers that had killed innocent people. But today, no one would die. The Alliance Defense Fleet scrambled to protect the shipyard. Their ships formed up in textbook formations, weapons charge. They outnumbered the human forces 3-1. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an overwhelming force. These were not normal circumstances. "Begin the demonstration," Mary ordered. Phase 1. Across her fleet, hidden systems activated. The Alliance ships suddenly found their weapons powering down. Their engines stuttered. Communication systems went silent. In 30 seconds, their entire fleet was dead in space. "How?" The Alliance Admiral's voice crackled through the emergency channel, the only system still working. "Our cyber defenses are the best in the galaxy." "They were," Mary replied calmly, "to anyone playing by your rules. We haven't been playing by your rules for a very long time." She turned to her weapons officer. Phase 2. Target the manufacturing centers, non-critical systems only. Beams of light that shouldn't have been possible according to known physics lanced out from the human ships. They sliced through the shipyard's outer sections with impossible precision. Manufacturing lines were cut away like a surgeon removing damaged tissue. Support structures were severed at exact points that caused entire sections to collapse in on themselves, contained and controlled. In Earth Command, Admiral Walker watched the operation through multiple feeds. Beside him, the Grand Speaker's hologram showed patterns of shock and fear. "This is impossible," the alien leader kept saying. "Your weapons, the energy readings, they defy known laws of physics." "No," Walker corrected. "They defy the laws of physics as you understand them. We discovered these principles centuries ago, but when we joined the Council, we saw how afraid you were of any species with advanced weapons." He gestured to another screen showing the ongoing demonstration. "So we hid them, used older technology, let you think you knew our limits." In space, Mary's fleet continued their work. The shipyard that had taken the Alliance decades to build was being systematically disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Every cut was precise. Every target was chosen to shut down operations without risking lives. Phase 3, Mary ordered. Her ships released swarms of small devices that attached themselves to key points throughout the shipyard. "A gift," she explained to the watching Alliance Admiral. "Shield generators, better than anything you have. Enough to protect your people while you rebuild." She paused. "Because that's what humans do. We protect, even those who try to hurt us." The demonstration lasted exactly 1 hour. When it was done, the Alliance's largest military shipyard was completely disabled. Its defense fleet hung powerless in space, and not a single life had been lost. "Send the signal," Mary ordered. Throughout human space, other fleets were conducting similar operations. Every military installation that had supported the quarantine was being systematically shut down. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed them all, but chose not to. As her fleet prepared to depart, Mary opened a channel to the Alliance Admiral one last time. "Look in your computer systems," she said. You'll find complete technical specifications for everything we just used against you. Not because we're careless, but because we want you to understand. We've been holding back out of respect, not weakness. Remember that the next time you mistake kindness for vulnerability. The human ships vanished, using drive systems that the Alliance's sensors couldn't even detect. They left behind disabled shipyards, powerless warships, and a galaxy that was beginning to understand a terrifying truth. They had never really known what humans were capable of. And this had just been a demonstration. The council chamber looked different now. The tiered seating that had once symbolized galactic hierarchy lay empty. Only the Grand Speaker and key representatives remained, their usual confidence replaced by wary tension. They watched as Ambassador Reed walked to the center of the chamber, no longer bound to the lower podium. 3 days ago, Reed began, his voice echoing in the unusually quiet space. Humanity demonstrated a fraction of its true capabilities. You've all seen the reports. The disabled shipyards, the neutralized fleets, the revealed technologies. He looked around the chamber, meeting each alien gaze. Now we talk about tomorrow. The Grand Speaker's tentacles moved nervously. The Council recognizes that mistakes were made. Prejudices clouded judgment. Perhaps new arrangements. No, Reed cut in softly. No more arrangements. No more rules made by those who never had to fight for survival. No more laws written by species who evolved on gentle worlds. He pressed a button on his wrist device, and the chamber's holographic system came alive with maps and data streams. This is every military installation in Council space, every hidden weapon cache, every secret research facility. The aliens stared in shock at the detailed information floating around them. Decades of carefully guarded secrets laid bare. While you thought we were struggling to understand your technology, Reed continued, we were mapping your strengths and weaknesses. While you dismissed us as primitive, we were analyzing every aspect of your civilizations. He smiled slightly. Did none of you wonder why humans took such interest in your histories, your cultures, your military tactics? We weren't just being friendly. We were learning. A representative from the Commerce Guild found their voice. You were spying on us. All this time. No, we were watching. Preparing. Because we knew this day might come. The day when someone would mistake our restraint for weakness. Reed's expression hardened. The day when the death of human children would be considered an acceptable political tool. The room fell silent at that. Even the Grand Speaker's tentacles went still. Here is humanity's ultimatum, Reed said into the silence. The Council will be reformed. New laws will be written. Laws that protect all species, not just those from gentle worlds. The discrimination against Deathworlders ends now. He looked at each representative in turn. You fear us because we evolved on a world that should have killed us. You never stopped to think what that truly means. We survived because we learned to protect each other, to fight for each other, to die for each other if necessary. He walked slowly around the chamber, the maps and data streams moving with him. Every human ship you've seen so far has been operating under strict peacetime protocols. Every weapon we've revealed has been set to minimal power. Every strategy we've employed has been designed to avoid casualties. He stopped walking. That can change. The Grand Speaker moved forward slightly. Are you threatening? I am promising, Reed corrected. If the Council refuses to reform, if the discrimination continues, if one more Deathworlder child dies because of your prejudice, humanity will not hold back again. And now you know what that means. He waved his hand, and new images appeared, designs for massive engineering projects, plans for galactic defense systems, technological innovations that made the aliens' most advanced achievements look primitive. This is what we want to build. Together. A better galaxy. Safer. Stronger. United. Reed's voice softened. We don't want to rule. We want to protect. It's what we've always wanted. But we will no longer pretend to be less than we are to make you comfortable. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, The Grand Speaker spoke. How can we trust you after such deception? Reed smiled. Because we could have conquered you 50 years ago. We chose cooperation instead. We could have destroyed your shipyards yesterday. We chose demonstration instead. We could be giving orders right now. We're offering partnership instead. He spread his hands. Think carefully about your response. Humanity's patience is not endless, but our capacity for cooperation is remarkable. The choice is yours. The message was clear. The age of treating Deathworlders as primitive savages was over. A new era was beginning, one way or another. 2 years after the day humanity revealed its true nature, the galaxy had changed. The same council chamber that once ranked species by their worlds of origin now hosted representatives seated as equals. Where the High Speaker's crystalline form once towered over others, a rotating council of various species shared leadership. Admiral Walker stood at the observation deck of the new Combined Fleet Command Station, watching ships from dozens of species training together. The sleek forms of human vessels moved in formation with the organic curves of Alliance ships and the crystalline structures of other council members. "Admiral," a voice called. He turned to see the former High Speaker approaching. The crystalline being's colors now showed patterns of respect, rather than the contempt they had displayed 2 years ago. "The new defense fleet is performing beyond expectations." Walker nodded. "Amazing what can happen when we stop holding back knowledge." He gestured to the training exercises. "Your pilots have adapted well to the new technology, as your people adapted well to pretending to be less than you were." The High Speaker's colors shifted to a pattern Walker had learned meant wry amusement. "We still tell stories about that day, you know, when we realized that the primitive Deathworlders had been several steps ahead of us for 50 years. Below them, in the station's main concourse, Captain Mary Stone walked with a group of young officers from various species. Her ship, still named Thunder, had become a training vessel where the galaxy's best and brightest learned to work together. The most important lesson, she told her students, isn't about technology or tactics. It's about understanding. She pointed to the diverse group around her. "Look at yourselves. 2 years ago, half of you wouldn't have been allowed to serve because your worlds were too harsh. Now you're the future of our combined fleet." In the new council chamber, Ambassador Reed sat with representatives from other Deathworld species, reviewing proposals for frontier colony protection. The same colonies that had once been quarantined were now thriving trade hubs, their hardy populations and advanced defense systems making them natural waypoints for deep space exploration. The children asked the most interesting questions, a delegate from another Deathworld species said. They want to know if humans were ever really weak, or if it was all an act. Reed smiled. "Tell them it wasn't an act. We showed exactly who we were. A species that chose peace over power, cooperation over conquest. We just didn't show everything we could do." The changes went beyond politics and military matters. Human medical technology, no longer hidden, had revolutionized treatment for species from harsh worlds. Engineering techniques that humanity had kept secret were helping transform hostile planets into habitable ones. The same precision that had disabled the Alliance shipyards was now being used to prevent natural disasters across the galaxy. In the station's educational center, alien children gathered around a human teacher. "Why did humans pretend to be weak?" A young crystalline being asked, its colors showing curiosity. The teacher thought for a moment. "We didn't pretend to be weak. We chose to be kind. There's a difference." She looked at the diverse group of students. Strength isn't just about having powerful weapons or advanced technology. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is hold back, be patient, and give others a chance to understand you. Back on the observation deck, Walker watched as the training fleet executed a perfect synchronized maneuver. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said to the High Speaker. "All those years we spent holding back, pretending to be less advanced, they made us stronger. We had to be creative, patient, strategic. We had to master ourselves before we could reveal our true capabilities. And now, the High Speaker asked, now we don't have to hold back anymore, but we choose to use our power to protect, to build, to unite. Walker smiled as a new group of ships joined the exercise. Vessels from a recently contacted Deathworld species, no longer feared but welcomed. That's the real lesson humanity wanted to teach. True civilization isn't about having power, it's about how you choose to use it. Throughout the galaxy, species still told stories about the day Deathworlders decided to stop being nice. But now they understood. Humanity had never stopped being nice. They had simply stopped pretending to be less than they were. And in doing so, they had helped create a galaxy where no species had to hide their true nature to be accepted.